Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaranari Yashoda Nandana Bhajajana Ranjana Yashoda Nandana Bhajajana Ranjana Jamuna Tira Vanashai Jamuna Tira Vanashai Jaya Rukmini Dwarkadish Rukmini Dwarkadish Rukmini Dwarkadish Rukmini Dwarkadish Jaya Jagannath Jaya Jagannath Jaya Baladeva Jaya Subhadra Jaya Gauranitai 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 Jaya Gauranitai Jaya Jaya Prabhupada 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 Jaya Prabhupada Jaya Jaya Prabhupada 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 Srila Prabhupada Gaur Premanandi, Hari Hari Bol, Jai Om Vishnu Pad, Paramahansa, Parabrajik Acharya, Asatari Sata Sri Shriman, ISKCON BBT Pad, Acharya Divine Grace, AC Bhaktivedanta Swami Maharaj Prabhupada Ki Jai, Nitya Lila Prabhisha Om Vishnu Pad Divine Grace, Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur Prabhupada Ki Jai, Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrinda Ki Jai, Nam Acharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai, Prem Sukha Hosh Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shri Vasadi Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai, Shri Shri Radha Krishna Gopa Gopada Shama Kunda Radha Kunda Giri Govardhan Ki Jai Shri Brajabhumi Namanam Ki Jai Shri Navadvip Mayapur Dham Ki Jai Shri Nilachal Jagannath Puri Dham Ki Jai Ganga Mai Ki Jai Jamuna Mai Ki Jai Bhakti Devi Ki Jai Shrimati Tulsi Maharani Ki Jai Our most beautiful lordship Shri Shukmini Dwarkadish Ki Jai Shri Shukmini Dwarkanath Ki Jai Shri Shri Jagannath Baladev Subhadra Ki Jai Shri Shri Gaurnitai Ki Jai Samabeta Bhaktivinoda Ki Jai Going back to home, back to Godhead Ki Jai ISKCON Los Angeles Yatra Ki Jai Brihad Madanga Transcendental Book Distribution Ki Jai International Food for Life Transcendental Prasadam Distribution Ki Jai Shri Harinam Sankirtan Ki Jai Nitai Gaur Premanandi Hari Hari Bol. All glories to the Assembly devotees, all glories to the Assembly devotees, all glories to the Assembly devotees, all glories to Shri Shri Guru and Gauranga, glories to the Prabhupada. Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Chaiva Narottamam Deving Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayamatirayat. Before reciting the Srimad Bhagavatam, which is our very means of conquest, let us offer respectful obeisances unto the personality of Godhead, Lord Narayan, unto Narayan Rishi, the supermost human being, unto Mother Saraswati, the goddess of learning, unto Srila Vyasadeva, the author, and unto Srila Prabhupada, who is the translator, commentator, and our spiritual master. Nashta Prayeshu Abhadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavati Shloke Bhaktir Bhavati Naisiki. By regularly attending the Srimad Bhagavatam class and by rendering service unto the pure devotee, all that is troublesome to the heart is almost completely destroyed, and loving devotional service unto the personality of Godhead, whose worship with transcendental songs becomes established as an irrevocable fact. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. So we're continuing our reading from the third canto of the Srimad Bhagavatam, chapter 19, Killing of the Demon Hiranyaksha. Today's text is 37. 37. Text 37. 3:19:37. So we'll say something about today's verse and purport. Then I'm going to touch briefly on maybe giving a little bit more insight into a question that arose after Brigapati's class about the hierarchy of devotees. I found a nice reference for that. And then I'm going to save some time to make a little presentation about my recent trip to San Antonio, interaction with devotees there. So today's verse, Yo vai hiranyaksha vadang mada mahabhutam Vikriditang karana sukkaratmanaha Shinoti gayatyanamodha tenjasa Vimuchyate brahma vadhadapi dvijaha Yo vai hiranyaksha vadang mahadbhutam Vikriditang karana sukkaratmanaha Shinoti gayatyanamodha tenjasa Vimuchyate brahma vadhadapi dvijaha Yo vai hiranyaksha vadang mahadbhutam Vikriditang karana sukkaratmanaha Shinoti gayatyanamodha tenjasa Vimuchyate brahma vadhadapi dvijaha. Please chant. Yo vai hiranyaksha vadang mahadbhutam Vikriditang karana sukkaratmanaha Shinoti gayatyanamodha tenjasa Vimuchyate brahma vadhadapi dvijaha Yo vai hiranyaksha vadang mahadbhutam Vikriditang karana sukkaratmanaha Srinoti gayatyanamodha tenjasa Vimuchyate brahma vadhadapi dvijaha Vaishnavis. Yo Vairanyakshama. Okay, synonyms. Yaha, he who. Vai, indeed. Hiranyaksha Vadam, of the killing of Hiranyaksha. Maha Adbhutam, most wonderful. Vikriditam, pastime. Karana, for reasons like raising the earth from the ocean. Sukara, appearing in the form of a boar. Atmanaha, of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Shrinoti, hears. Gayati, chants. Anumodate, takes pleasure. Anjasa, at once. Vimuchyate, becomes freed. Brahmavadat, from the sin of killing a Brahmana. Opi, even. Dvijaha, O Brahmanas. Srila Prabhupada's translation for this verse. O Brahmanas, anyone who hears, chants, or takes pleasure in the wonderful narration of the killing of the Hiranyaksha demon by the Lord, who appeared as the first boar in order to deliver the world, is at once relieved of the results of sinful activities, even the killing of a Brahmana. So, please repeat. O Brahmanas, anyone who hears, chants, or takes pleasure in the wonderful narration of the killing of the Hiranyaksha demon by the Lord, who appeared as the first boar in order to deliver the world, is at once relieved of the results of sinful activities, even the killing of a Brahmana. Srila Prabhupada's purport. Since the personality of Godhead is in the absolute position, there is no difference between his pastimes and his personality. Anyone who hears about the pastimes of the Lord associates with the Lord directly, and one who associates directly with the Lord is certainly freed from the results of all sinful activities, even to the extent of the killing of a Brahmana, which is considered the most sinful activity in the material world. One should be very eager to hear about the activities of the Lord from the bona fide source, the pure devotee. If one simply gives oral reception to the narration and accepts the glories of the Lord, then he is qualified. The impersonalist philosophers cannot understand the activities of the Lord. They think that all his activities are Maya. Therefore, they are called Mayavadis. Since everything to them is Maya, these narrations are not for them. Some impersonalists are reluctant to hear Srimad Bhagavatam, although many of them are now taking an interest in it just for monetary gain. Actually, however, they have no faith. On the contrary, they describe it in their own way. We should not hear, therefore, from the Mayavadis we have to hear from Sutta Goswami or Maitreya, who actually present the narrations as they are, and only then can we relish the pastimes of the Lord. Otherwise, the effects on the neophyte audience will be poisonous. Namo Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prishnaya Mutale Srimati Bhaktivedanta Swamini Iti Namine Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pacharine Nirvishesha Shunyavani Paschatya Deshtarne Om Agyana Timbarandasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshur Unmilitam Jaina Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtang Shnapitang Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandehahang Shri Guru Shri Yuttapada Kamalam Shri Gurun Vaishamangscha Shri Rupam Sagadatam Sahagana Raghunatham Vitam Tang Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Saitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakam Vitangsha Hey Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dina Bandho Jagatpate Gopesh Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namosate Tapta Kanchana Gorangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vishavanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vancha Kalpatarubhya Shah Kripa Sindhu Evacha Patitadang Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasari Gaur Bhaktivinoda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. So we've all heard this narration, maybe some of us several or many times, but that does not mean we have license to go out and kill brahmanas. It's an indication of how powerful the narration of the Lord is, but it's not a license to kill. Furthermore, the current authorities will not agree that you're free from culpability just because you've heard the narrations of Lord Varaha killing Hiranyaksha. Yes, I mean, the narrations of the Lord are so powerful that they can relieve one of the reactions to all sins. The holy name of the Lord is powerful, can do the same thing. That's stated in the 6th canto of the Srimad Bhagavatam in the 1st chapter, the Ajamil Lila, where it's stated, Agyanat atavagyanat uttama shloka namayat sankirtatim agang pungso dahet eda yatanala. That verse is just as a fire can consume any amount of fuel that you put into it. Similarly, chanting the holy name of the Lord will relieve one of more reactions to more sins than you can commit. Again, that's not a license to commit sin. It just indicates how powerful the chanting of this holy name of the Lord is. So one may wonder that I'm chanting for 5 years, 10 years, some of us going on 50 years, but I don't feel that I'm relieved of all sin. That means you don't go back and commit any sins anymore. That's compared to pouring oil or fuel on a fire that you're supposedly trying to put out. What happens when you pour gasoline on a fire? For a second, it seems like it's going out. It tamps down. But then in the next moment, you get this huge pyrotechnic explosion. So it's like that. If we're chanting Hare Krishna, as we recite every morning, but we're holding on to material desires, that's an offense. And that slows us down. It's like an anchor. It keeps us. Yes, the chanting does relieve us of the reactions to sinful activities, but if we commit sins or we commit offenses to the holy name, and therefore we say that if one commits these offenses, one can go on chanting for millions of births and not get the love of Godhead, which is the ultimate goal of the chanting. So we have to be careful. We have to put some desire into it. We have to put some, I know recently I've been reflecting on my own chanting and thinking that, at age 71, there are not that many more years left. So I really need to get serious about chanting, trying to chant offenselessly. There are 3 stages, as we know. The offensive stage, where one is first introduced to the chanting of the Hare Krishna mantra, but one does not know what are the offenses that are to be avoided. So one inevitably commits offenses while chanting. Then we learn about the 10 offenses against the chanting of the Hare Krishna mantra, and we should try to avoid those 10 offenses, and that's called the clearing stage. So many, if not most of us, are in that clearing stage. But there is another stage, a Shuddhanam, where we are supposed to be chanting offenselessly. So everybody knows their own heart. They know the level of chanting that they're on, or you should know. You can't be Krishna conscious if you're not conscious. And the tendency in the conditioned state is to be more conscious of what other people do than of what I'm doing. To be more conscious of the deleterious effects of other people's actions than the effects of my own actions. Well, as one advances, one becomes more and more introspective, or should become more and more introspective, and actually keep track of every single, not just action, but every single thought. And don't let the mind go there. We know what there is. Certain places you shouldn't allow your mind to go. So while chanting, Krishna explains you have to bring the mind back. Kshanai kshanai uparamet. Wherever the mind goes, wherever it wanders while you're chanting, you have to bring it back, consciously bring it back to just hearing and chanting. One devotee once said to Srila Prabhupada that, Srila Prabhupada, sometimes when I'm chanting, I think, and Prabhupada immediately said, don't think, just hear and chant. Chant Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. And hear that. Hear every syllable. Hare Krishna Rama. By the way, I'd like to remind some of our Kirtaniyas that there's no O in Rama, because a lot of them like to say Ramo. There's no O there. Rama, or Ram you can say. That last letter is almost silent, because the previous vowel is long. So Ram, or Rama, but never Ramo. Some devotees picked that up, I think, mainly in Bengal, and then became part of ISKCON. Ramo. No. So we should hear every syllable while we're chanting. Now, here it's being mentioned that it's killing of Hiranyaksha. So killing is generally ghastly. We don't want to hear about killing. But because this whole pastime was arranged by the Lord for His pleasure, then hearing about the Lord's killing Hiranyaksha, or Lord Nrsingadev killing Hiranyakashipu, or there are even more ghastly things when Krishna and Balaram were slaughtering the soldiers of Jarasandha just by themselves. The two of them went out on the battlefield to face Akshahini divisions of soldiers. And it's described clearly in the Krishna book how they were slaughtering these soldiers, chopping off their heads, their arms, their legs, killing their elephants and their horses. There was a whole river of blood flowing. That's ghastly. Normally we don't want to even imagine something like that. But because it's done by the Supreme Personality of Godhead, then it's glorious. To hear of Krishna slaughtering all these soldiers is glorious. And we know the end result for anyone killed directly by the Lord, like Hiranyaksha is being killed here, their destination is also glorious. They get promoted. He is the all-good Supreme Personality of Godhead. So everything He does is all good. And hearing about everything that He does is good for us. So here we're hearing about death. But death is preceded by birth. And it's amazing, at every moment, some living entities taking birth, millions of living entities are taking birth, and at every moment, millions of living entities are dying. But practically outside of the Vaishnava community, nobody understands really what is birth and what is death. In the human society, you would think they would at least understand. Animals, they have no clue. They get together and they create the next generation. Sometimes practically overnight, like some flies, they live practically one day. They take birth, they mate, and then they die, and then the eggs are left behind, and then they come to fruition. So many human beings are producing so many offspring. Although they say nowadays, not enough. For many, many decades, people were saying, oh, the world population is expanding too fast, it's going to crash, and they promote birth control and this and that. But now they've changed their tune. They're saying that after peaking at about 9 or 10 billion in a couple of years, it's going to crash because people are not having enough children. And this is how they flip-flop in the material world. When you're on the mental platform, you almost inevitably make a 180 degree from the decision that you made earlier. Like in China, for decades they were promoting one child per family, no more than that, one child. Now their population is crashing. And now they're trying to induce people to have more than one child. So this is what goes on in the name of knowledge in the material world. They speculate, they come to some conclusion, they force people to follow that conclusion, and inevitably later on they turn around and say, no, do just the opposite. So people are getting together, they're producing children, they have no clue. They're thinking that by male and female getting together, we're creating life. No, life is never created. First lesson on the Bhagavad Gita. Natweva ham jatanasam natang neme chanaripa. Not chaiva, nabhavishyame. Sarve vayam atak. Never was there a time when I did not exist, nor you, nor all these kings, nor in the future will any of us cease to be. This is the beginning of knowledge. You cannot create a life. The combination of the secretion of the male and female creates the vehicle, the vessel in which the life is injected. It doesn't create life. But to this day, even so-called religionists, theologians, they don't know that. Simple fact. Like I said, we just came back from the AAR conference in San Antonio, American Academy of Religion. So there are a lot of scholars of religion there. I'll talk a little bit more about that later on. But even these scholars, they have no clue. What is birth? How is... They're debating still to this day. Is life created at which point during pregnancy? They have no idea. And therefore they don't know how to treat living entities. They have no clue. Some of them sanction all kinds of abominable things because they have no clue about life. Not only that human life is sacred, but that all life is sacred. This is real knowledge. Chanakya Pandit has given a very succinct definition of who is a Pandit, who is a learned person. Matarat paradaryeshu parajavyeshu losabat anmabak sarvabhuteshu. Yeah, one who sees like that, he's a Pandit. So Matarat paradaryeshu, so see every woman besides your wife as mother. Meaning that if you're not married, you're supposed to see every woman as mother. Parajavyeshu losabat, seeing everybody else's possessions as garbage in the street. Don't touch it. So there's no question of theft when people are trained like that. And then, Anmabak sarvabhuteshu, seeing all living entities as oneself. We all know, if a little pinch, I feel pain. So where's there any question of cutting the throat of another living entity? So this is real knowledge. So these so-called scholars, they're having conferences and making big presentations, but they have no clue about the very beginning aspect, birth. They have no clue. They can't give you a clear explanation. And then what to speak of death? What to speak of death? Those who are demonically inclined, they think that I have so many enemies and I'm going to kill them. No clue that you can't really kill somebody. That person goes on to their next situation. We all survive the death experience. If we didn't, then there would be no meaning to religion and spirituality, if nothing, if we didn't survive the death experience. But again, so-called religionists, they don't have a clear understanding of that. Some of them still believe that you should bury the body because at some point that body will be resurrected. So I always ask them, which body? If you die at 108, is that 108-year-old body going to be resurrected? If you die at 3 months, is a 3-month-old body going to be resurrected? You see? They have no clue. Just some vague idea of resurrection. So real knowledge we get from the Vedas. As Subhaspa was reading this morning from the first canto, chapter 5, the discussion between Narad Muni and Vyasadeva. So it was explained there that this knowledge is to be disseminated by those in the mode of goodness, purely in the mode of goodness. In the Satya Yuga, everyone was in the mode of goodness, but then gradually deteriorates till now we're in the Kali Yuga. Most people are in the mode of ignorance, completely ignorant, even about ordinary material things, what to speak of spiritual. They have no clue, again. Yet they present themselves as being knowledgeable. They present themselves as being able to teach others. You go online, there are so many courses you can take about how to live and what to do. But if you press the person who's making the presentation, they have no clue about what is birth, what is death, what to speak of, how to live in between birth and death. So this is where the Vaishnavas come in. Vaishnavas are meant to know, have answers to all these questions. And we're not by speculation, by getting it from the Vedas, taught by one's spiritual master. This is real Vaishnava life. One has to have a spiritual master. Spiritual master is considered to be the father, and the Vedic literature is a mother. And it was explained earlier in the Bhagavatam, in that first canto. Why? Why did Vyasadeva present this? Anarto pasamam sakshat bhakti yoga madokshate lokasya janata vidvam chakre satyata sangitam. That the material miseries of the living entity are actually superfluous. We're not actually being put into painful situations. We are put into painful situations because of previous sinful activities, but we're not actually experiencing that. The body is experiencing that, but the soul is not. The soul is not touched by any of that. So the material miseries of the living entity are superfluous to them, and they can be mitigated by the connecting process of bhakti yoga. But the mass of people don't know this. Therefore, the great sage Vyasadeva has written this Srimad Bhagavatam, which is in connection to the Supreme Truth. So we're very fortunate. We have this Srimad Bhagavatam, we have Bhagavad Gita, we have all these books of knowledge, and not just from any source, but from a bona fide source coming down in the succession. We did a home program while we were in San Antonio, and there was a very nice Indian family. They came, and the wife especially was very curious. She's a very curious person. We met them again later on about how to go forward in spiritual life. So I explained to her, I could see where she was coming from. So the very first thing I explained was that there are 4 sampradayas that you can get bona fide spiritual knowledge from. Everything else is speculation, because a lot of pious Indians, even amongst our own community, are attracted to these wonderful Bhagavad speakers that they find online, or these, like that. Oh, he's such a nice devotee. So I say the first thing you should ask such a person is, who is your guru? And who was your guru's guru? If you don't know that, if you don't have a guru, then you're completely bogus. And if you have a guru, but he doesn't have a guru, then it's still bogus. And they have to be connected to one of the 4 bona fide sampradayas. Otherwise, whatever they're presenting is not to be accepted. As it properly finishes his purport here. The effects on the neophyte audience will be poisonous. If you hear Bhagavatam or any Vedic literature from a bogus person, a Mayavadi, as he said, Prabhupada said in the purport, the Mayavadis are now presenting Bhagavatam for money. Not that they accept that Krishna is God or they accept the path of bhakti, but they become very learned in the Bhagavatam, just like they did with Bhagavad Gita. There are many Mayavadis who know all 700 verses of the Bhagavad Gita. But if you press them, they don't believe Krishna is a real person. They believe there's some impersonal truth beyond Krishna. So just having knowledge coming from the Vedas is not enough. Tarko pratishta shrutayamayam nasab munir matam biminam dharmasya tattvam nihitam guhayam mahajana yena gata sapanta. So just dry logic, tarko pratishta, you'll never find the truth. And even approaching these munis, very learned persons, many of whom are Mayavadis, you're not going to find the truth either. Dharmasya tattvam nihitam guhayam. And the real truth of Dharma is hidden where? In the hearts of the pure devotees. And therefore, one has to follow Mahajana Yena Gatao Sapanta. One has to follow the pure devotees of the Lord. Don't follow these Maya. Don't even hear from them. Sanatan Goswami warns us. Avaishama Makord Guna. Putam Harikata Amritam. Shravanam Naiva Kartam. Sarvo Chista Yatapaya. He says milk is wonderful food, but if it's touched by the lips of a serpent, it becomes poisonous. And you can't see the poison. That's the whole point. It still looks like milk. It's not that you see like some purple bubbles boiling up. No. If a serpent injects poison into milk, it still looks like milk. And you drink that, you die. So similarly, the untrained neophyte, they're saying, but it's Bhagavad, it's Vedas, why can't we hear? Because to them it looks just like pure milk. But a Vaishnava like Sanatana Goswami says, no, if you hear from the Mayavadis, your progress will be stopped, it will be doomed. So basically the point again today is that hearing the narrations of the Lord will relieve one of reactions to sinful activities. Doesn't mean that we have a license to commit sin. That's one of the offenses against the holy name. Nam no balad yasa yipapa buddhi, number 7 of the 10, that one should not commit sinful activities on the strength of chanting Hare Krishna. And we should avoid hearing these narrations. They're wonderful, but don't hear them from the non-devotees. So I'm going to take a few minutes now at the end to make a little presentation about what we did in San Antonio. So every year now, for probably the last 20 years, we've been participating in this AAR conference, American Academy of Religion. We have a booth there, BBT booth. That's Arcita Prabhu sitting in the booth. And it's attended mostly by scholars of religion, people who teach religion in schools or write books about religion. Most of them, first of all, the attendance has gone way down since COVID. And we were hoping it would rebound this year. It was no better than last year in Denver. So again, one of the reasons is that COVID is still out there, but another reason is that I think that finally the digital age has caught up with book publishing. Most people nowadays, they don't go to a conference like this like they used to in the past. In the past, they used to have bags full of books when they were leaving to go home. Now, they buy maybe 1 or 2 books at the conference. If they like a book, they'll just go home and buy it on Amazon. Or they won't even buy a physical book anymore. They just get the EPUB version and they just read it on their smart device. So I think finally the digital age is catching up with publishing, book publishing. That's my understanding. I spoke at length with many of the other vendors, and a lot of them agree that this is what's happening. The people are just not buying physical books anymore. So anyway, we still have our book booth there, and we try to interest people. We stop them, we ask them, are you a professor or a student? What is your field? One guy I stopped, really tall guy. In Europe you would say 2 meters. A meter is 3.3 feet, so 2 meters is 6.6 feet, which is about 6 feet 7 inches. And by the build, I guessed that he was from Switzerland, because I've traveled in Switzerland, and there's a particular part where practically all the men are like that. 2 meters tall, skinny. So I asked him, he said, no. One side of the family is from Norway, the other side from Holland. So I asked him, what is his field? Hebrew Bible. So I said, wait a minute, what's the connection? Norway, Holland, what do you guys have to do with Hebrew Bible? He said, but that's what I studied for my PhD thesis, and I really was attracted to it. So he's written several books about the Hebrew Bible, and he makes presentations about the Hebrew Bible. But then I asked him, have you read any of our books? No, not even Bhagavad Gita. I said, most scholars at least have heard of Bhagavad Gita. No, he wasn't interested in anything. So I said, well, how about the cookbooks? You can see on the end of the tape, we keep the cookbooks very prominent, because a lot of them do. When they're not interested in our philosophical books, I can at least sell them a cookbook. So I said, you know, are you vegan, vegetarian? No. Anybody in your family maybe on your gift list? No, he wasn't interested. So that's the extent of their scholarship. Here's somebody who's writing about Hebrew Bible. But they forget that in the very first chapter of the Bible, Genesis, it says, the fruit of the tree shall be your meat. Any man who kills an ox is like he killed a man. They conveniently jump over that. So what kind of scholar? Again, a scholar should know Atma Bhaksarvabhuteshu. Treat every living entity like you would like to be treated yourself. If you can't do that, then you're not a scholar. I don't care how many PhDs you have. And some of them have multiple PhDs. But if you don't even know that basic fact, then you're not a scholar. I don't care how much, accolades you have and awards, and if you don't know these basic facts, then you're not a scholar. Another view of the booth. This was popular though. We had one devotee couple who lived there in San Antonio, Bhagwan Narada and his wife Naradi Dasi. So they were catering every day, not just for us, but also some devotee scholars who came to the conference. And they made these vegan butter cookies for distribution, and they went like that. That they could respond to. So they got a little bit of agyata sukriti, pious credit, by eating vegan prasadam cookies. And the conference center is near to this famous San Antonio River Walk, and very nicely done. We should have something like this here in LA. It's, both banks are paved, and they have seating areas and waterfalls, and nice place to chant japa. I chanted several rounds out there. This is one of our devotee scholars. I had seen him before previously, but I never met him. He's a disciple of Arcita Prabhu, and his name is Kishore. What's his name again? Kishore something. It's a two-part name, but anyway, I can't remember the second part. But the interesting thing about him is that his area of scholarship is Jainism. So even though he's an initiated Vaishnava, has a PhD, his area of speciality is Jainism. So the Jains, they fly him all over the world to present Jainism to others. Very interesting. You can find his legal name is Kogan Bohanech, and there's a website you can see details about him. So this is where we stayed. Gasper Motel, which is owned by a nice Indian couple. They consider themselves elderly, but they're both younger than me. I'm 71. The father, you'll see pictures later on, he's 69 and the wife is younger. But there's some ISKCON connection to this Gasper Motel. It's two buildings. At the very end on the right there, the last room, number 17, that's where Brigapati and Jagatatra stayed. I stayed in a different room. But that number 17, they said back in the 80s, Tamal Krishna Goswami Maharaj was still doing his traveling bus program. So he came there and they gave him that room to stay in. But the funny thing they said was that he didn't stay in the room, he slept in the bus. They used the room, but he slept in the bus. He wouldn't sleep in the room. So they have very nice altar. Very sattvic people. They're not initiated yet, but they chant Hare Krishna seriously every day. And they have beautiful altar, Radha Madhav, they call their deities. And close up. And they have Lada Gopal. So this is a family. That's Ravi on the far right, the owner, and his wife next to him. What's her name again? Tara. And then this family, husband, wife, and two daughters, the woman there, she was the one who was asking questions about making progress in spiritual life. So I was trying to steer her away from these Mayavadi so-called Vaishnavas. Then on Saturday, I did a program. Brigapati and Jagatatra stayed at the conference, but I went 2-hour drive from San Antonio going towards Houston. It's actually closer to Houston than to San Antonio, only a 50-minute drive from Houston. So Arcita Prabhu, who many of you may know, remember, used to be here, he used to be temple president at one point, right? So he and his wife, they're running this property, which is actually owned by an Indian devotee couple. It's a 20-acre property, and they call it Bhagavat Academy. You can find them online. Beautiful, beautiful property. This is the main house. They also have a guest house that they rent out like an Airbnb. So while I was there, one woman had actually rented it for her marriage. She was getting married in the local area, And she loved the place, and she came for the morning program. They said she chanted, so they're doing some nice preaching there. This is their living room / temple room, and that's their altar. And they have Gaudi Thai, and that's on the right there. That's Yashoda Damodar, because it's Damodarska, so, and Prabhupada. And then there was prasadam after the program. I spoke about the Damodar Ashtaka, and then after there was prasadam. Now, anybody who went to the Govindas when it was across the street, this was one of the staples. Vatsal's wife was the one who made it, and she made it exactly. I was like in ecstasy. It tasted just like it did back in the day. And that's the whole tray of it. So I asked her to give me the recipe, so she's going to send me the recipe. I'll try my best to make it. How many of you remember this? It's called vegan quiche, or vegetarian quiche. It wasn't vegan at the time. Vegetarian quiche. It was wonderful preparation, and it tasted just like it did back then. So, that's it. Thank you for your kind attention. Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam Ki Jai, Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai, Gaur Bhaktivinoda Ki Jai.